Okay, so welcome everyone again. This is now the official start of the webinar on grooming, organized by our partnership with Marta Centers and academic experience in the LEADER project. We will let you know about the project later. And I think it's the best if we just introduce ourselves. So, Madara, what would you say? What's relevant in your background to this webinar?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the space and opportunity also to speak about this really important issue. Me, myself, I'm from organization Marta Center. We are based in Riga, Latvia. And this is an organization that works both with victims of violence and also in preventive work. So we do see in the field how the violence looks, especially in interpersonal relationships and domestic violence and human trafficking. But my expertise is more working with youth and specialists working with youngsters in prevention work, trying to educate the society and the youngsters themselves to be able to recognize red flags, recognize the unhealthy relationships before something actually bad happens, or to know when actually you have to turn for help. And yeah, this is an issue that we will go deeper in that later on, but that has been really topical lately in the last few years in Latvia. That's why it's like personally a really new thing that we are now trying to figure out how to talk about. We will invite you in the conversation about that as well. Arpi, what about you? Who are you?
Yeah, I'm a youth worker and train youth workers, and I used to work in foster care. And what's relevant here, and where the experience shared during this webinar comes from my side, is I'm also supporting survivors of grooming and sexual abuse, and not just underage, but I'm in touch with some of them in their adulthood, as young adults, and I think it's worth mentioning that we would like to go over some framework of understanding of what grooming is and what the impact might be of grooming. And we would like to make our understanding more concrete by sharing some examples coming from both of our practices. Yeah, so that's where I come from. And let's see. And I really recommend you to interrupt us anytime and have a more of a conversational webinar. So not just presentation, but let's just discuss, ask, clarify if needed, and also if there's relevant experience that you feel like sharing, we really appreciate it as well.
Thank you. I'm sorry for jumping in with the presentation. It happened sooner than I expected that I pushed the button.
It's just perfect.
But as we mentioned, we will be showing some slides for you to have some kind of keywords to talk about. But yeah, the main idea is still having like active conversation, not really us just saying like, this is the theory. Because yeah, the main key thing is to understand that how does it look like in practice and what that grooming actually is, right? So, oh, I don't know. Do we go into topic, right?
Yeah.
You know, like maybe for the listeners as well. Do you have some kind of association? Do you know what is the keywords? What kind of characterizes specifically this term grooming? What is it? What is it?
Yeah,
Maybe
what comes
it's something
to mind?
you have never heard, so that's fine.
And it's okay to open the mic or share in the chat. We try to keep an eye on what comes to mind, and there's no wrong answers. We're just trying to lay the ground for the work afterwards. So sometimes it's in the news, sometimes it's in conversation in coffee breaks, and I think there's some kind of unclarity around it. So we really appreciate if you share anything that comes to mind. If you hear the word grooming, what do you associate to? Just to see.
For me, grooming is when you tell someone what they need to hear, and when you try to put a lot of sugar on what you do, probably physically or with the words. And this is where it could have some manipulation or some hidden messages or something. So this is how I see the word grooming.
Thank you. And you said putting sugar on it and manipulation. And I see in the chat also manipulation and quote unquote, you're special. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I think we know a lot. So there's some kind of, misleading manipulation. Anything else that comes to mind if you hear this word?
I think it's like the first thing that comes to my mind is about grooming is like preparing to something, to someone. Actually, like preparing, but what to prefer? Like, is a positive thing or is a negative thing? That you can use the two lines of it. That's how I think.
Oh, thank you very much. Like, yeah, it's a preparation and it's sure. Yeah.
I would like to add one more point. It made me think too that it's grooming usually, no offense, it's used to when you pet. So it's maybe there's an attitude that comes with it. There's someone that is better than another person. So this is why you're grooming as if there's this uneven,
Wow.
uneven
Relationship,
this adult and probably an object. It's more like an object.
And also maybe for the beard and then barber shops, they also use the name grooming, right? To create something a bit artificial in a way, or to treat someone as.
Yes. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. It's Moira, because that is the office code. Anyway, so I'm Moira from Malta. With regards to grooming, if you take it in the sense of, for example, girls that are being helped to look pretty, and that could be a good thing because they might feel good about themselves. But with regards to negative things, it could be a thing where presumably they would be, for example, being groomed for fashion, for modeling, but then through channels and through ways even with regards to maybe going into contests, and people would approach them in order to fakely provide them with the sense of relief they need, and the sense that, wow, I'm being watched, I'm being taken notice. But when it comes to reality, these people might be trying to get into contact with them to maybe at a later stage how do I put it? Human traffic them or do certain things online with their photos, with their images, and that would be a totally different thing then.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I think like what all of you just said are in line with manipulation and giving the message that you're special. And it's also mentioned in the chat that it's unsafe relationship and taking advantage of trust, definitely.
Exactly.
So I think like what I wanted to get to is like we are now in an international context. We we speak English now. Most of us speaks it as at least the second language, so it's not our mother tongue. And this term, even in English, is a new term, but most youth workers and professionals working with young people have met this term in an English version, and now it's I think, in the process of being translated and trying to look for our own terms. What do we mean by that? And I think you helped a lot. And also we prepared, so we didn't came empty-handed. So Madara, what is
Yeah.
grooming? What would you say?
Well, you mentioned almost, I think in some aspect, all the things that characterizes what it is. But yes, grooming, it's something that is deliberate, something intentional, something that someone does with an intention to do something, right? It's not like just randomly happening out of context. It's not like accidental thing that someone does. And yes, also it's a manipulative process. It's part of manipulation, and it's a process. It's something that doesn't happen like in a second, because here comes the gradual aspect, because it has stages. It has steps where how we closely build the relationship with someone. And usually, yeah, it is when some individual gains. Here in this context, we speak about young persons, so youngsters, but definitely we consider grooming also in context of young kids, and also we can speak also about grooming in other contexts about adults still, because when they are groomed into exploitation. But here is the key word is that they are gaining the trust and emotional dependence. That there's a relationship built. And yes, and usually it has a specific purpose of manipulation, abuse, or exploitation. Most commonly, it can be sexual abuse, but it can be also trafficking for work exploitation, or for other like substance trafficking. I forgot just at the moment. It's not on my word. I lost the word.
The drug muse.
Drug muse, yes. Mule was the word I was looking for. So that is also something that is used. Here we will mostly focus on on this kind of a less about maybe human trafficking part, and more about the sexual exploitation or unhealthy relationships. But definitely this is a larger problem if we think about that, and the techniques are still the same. It just depends what are the purposes in the end.
And it's all gender-based most of the time.
Yes, and that will definitely, thanks for that. We will really talk about what are the factors also for the youth or kids becoming victims.
Yeah, and maybe just mentioning one thing here, if we talk about, like, because this webinar is approaching this topic from the context of youth work, it's important that youth work, there's power imbalance. So there's adults working with young people, and I think this has a potential for this kind of risk there.
And this is actually also the moment why in Latvia this came into public awareness, because we found out in a way about the grooming because grooming has been there somewhere. Kids and youngsters have suffered from sexual exploitation, harassment, so on for ages. But it kind of really came into public attention through youth work, because this is something that was way less regulated, and how youngsters interacted there, and what the cases came up later on as something that people just finally realized that it's not only something that is happening somewhere else with some kind of bad people coming from internet. It was something that is here in the summer camps, in the youth NGOs, and so on. But yeah, and also, as you said about what you mentioned about the language, about the terms, it is often that we still don't have the term for that, even in our local languages. For example, in Latvia, we just came to the term like last year. We finally figured out, hey, there's this thing happening. We have to come together and figure out one specific word that we are using. Otherwise, as you know, when there's some kind of word that is just somewhere there around, people can't really figure it out what it is. And you have to give it a definition also in your local languages. So yeah, we've been in this process of figuring out ourselves locally how to talk about it. But
Yeah, so
yeah,
so it might seem also that this is a very abstract definition. And before we jump into how this happens, we just thought to ask you what cases come to mind when you hear this or see this definition. Maybe they are related already, to see more concretely what kind of things we see around us that might be related to grooming. So if you share in the chat or just open the mic and share cases like, okay, this is what we're talking about right now. We really appreciate it. And I've read also Nazim wrote about building relationship trust, emotional connection. Yes. And to manipulate and exploit and abuse young people. And it can happen online. Social media, games, chat, or in person, definitely. And just also to frame our webinar here, we would like to focus on more how it's happening between people. So the abuse of the power imbalance and relationships. And we don't go into super concrete details, especially about online grooming, but more about concrete details about how relationships are abused. Just wanted to add there. And now I'm asking, like, okay, what case comes to mind if you have something on top of your head? Like, yeah.
What comes to my mind in my culture, I come from a Lebanese culture. It's mostly, it happens when you have a person of trust, a person where you feel intimidated in front, and for you trying to be the nice person. And the grooming happens because usually we tend to fear what is violent from the surface, but grooming, because it's really, it looks nice. So we feel we need this attachment, we need this power coming from this trustworthy person. So we fall into this, and practically it happens in the education, at work, in the religion, in churches and mosques and so on. So all people that where we need and we think that we need to trust, or even if they are adults or like older people, so we need to respect and trust these people. This is where it people suffer from grooming usually.
Yeah, thank you, Patricia. Like you described very well. Like it can be all kinds of organizations, like camps. It can be religious organizations. It can be media, art. Like, yeah, we are doing a joint project here, and there's this great person who's leading it, some kind of guru or very much appreciated person. And if there's this environment, it can be provide ground for grooming. And there's like also famous like stories. For example, if you mention the Catholic Church in Boston, USA, and then in different countries, there were cases of grooming. Or if you think about Hollywood or the Epstein case in the US, so some things occur in the media depending on where you live and where you're consuming it. So you see that you can think about these cases, and we will add some other concrete things we've seen a bit from closer distance and have some concrete experience with. But let's see now what could be the steps of grooming. How does this happen? And and Fatima says also like there's some secrecy, building relationship. Yeah. How does this happen?
Hi. Yeah. Sorry, who was?
Hi. Well, all the perpetrators know who to pick on. They know who the vulnerable girls or boys are. And there's 3 processes of actual grooming. You have the spotter, you have the recruiter, and then you have the trafficker. So there's different phases. It's not just one thing. You know, I've seen this girl, you know, I targeted her, and then so there's three individuals that will be involved. It's a whole gang. It's a whole circle of men trying or women trying to recruit anyone, but they would know who to target: the vulnerable, the lonely, the runaways, coming from a difficult social background.
Okay, thank
So-
you.
Definitely.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Joyce.
Welcome.
Thank you. And this is something that we can look at if it's like an organized grooming, right? For exploitation, for trafficking, or we will be looking also in different aspects how the grooming can happen also when there's one person for different purposes grooming. But thank you, Joyce. Also, someone else was trying to speak. You
Yeah,
have
you
to
can
unmute
just
yourself.
Yeah.
May I?
Yeah.
Okay. At times, it's the people whom you trust most who are your parents. And, well, certain episodes come to mind when a parent starts doing certain things to the daughter, the son, mostly the daughter, and there are quite a number of issues around that thing, because it might be poverty, it might be drug abuse, it might be anything you can imagine. But in order to get the money, anything that they need for survival, especially if it's a family that is going through turmoil, well, they can do anything actually.
Yeah, thank you very much. And like you mentioned, two ends of the scale actually. Like there is this organized crime and human trafficking, and there could be different roles. And now what was mentioned also that it can be people close to the young persons. And what I invite us all to focus on, like our work environment. So youth work is very innovative. It's very close contact with young people who are not necessarily relatives, but someone around who is like very very nice person kind of. And if you look at, for example, the cases in the church or camps, or in my case what I'm seeing in the foster home I worked at, there was the director grooming and sexually abusing young people. And what is important in all these cases, and what was mentioned, that it's not randomly happening. If you look at the pattern, you see that the ones who were targeted were the ones who were more vulnerable in one way or another. And I think we can have a look at, like, the first thing or sign we need to look at is like selecting. There's a selection. And what was already mentioned is that who they have access to and who has less protecting factors around, or less people to support, or less chance for help.
Mhm.
And I
And
don't
also, yeah,
you add.
yeah, it's also about their social environment. Do they have trusted persons around? Are they lonely, right? And also the family factors play a role here. If it's someone targeting the kid or the youngster, wanting to exploit them, sexually abuse them, they might even, yeah, really check in what's the family situation, become really close to them, and see what are the open loops in a way where they are not protected, and in which moments, and like so we will talk later as well a bit more about like what are the family factors maybe that can play a role. But definitely they are kind of choosing always the person who is easier to access because of some kind of factors that make them more vulnerable.
And if you can think of something, you can think about a single mother raising their children, that father is in prison or left the family, and then the priest visits the family, which is such a great honor. And wow, we are paid attention to. This is this like a unique opportunity when this nice person comes to our family and visits regularly. So this is already selecting someone who needs more care and love, and also more maybe receptive to any attention, and especially the children. And it's also, it has happened also in the foster home I worked at. It was the victims and the survivors of the grooming and the abuse were all young people who had less connection with their families or had no connection with the family.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
also,
so
for example, it can happen like it can be also a family that you technically has all the resources and have a good situation and so on, but the parents are really a lot into the work. They don't have a close contact with the teenager at that moment, and this is also something like on the surface everything is nice and correct, but then this is the spot when the youngster is missing the contact, there's some kind of a validation, and here the groomer can come in and get the needed access point. And this is definitely the thing that is more common in the fields where the youth work is present, right? Because youngsters are looking there for some kind of belonging then, if they don't have this active belonging in the family or some other environments. And they're here the abuser is really can sneakily see that which of the youngsters don't have the social circle for them that is kind of covering for this. But I guess
yes,
we can also go for the next, right? Because how is it done, right? And you rightly mentioned that it's through gaining this trust and having this access. You can't really just go directly to the youngster and say, "Hey, now I'm like, well now I will be your trusted person." They are gaining this really slowly. They usually are charismatic persons because other people really consider them as likable and sociable and really like great community members. And that's the thing that usually creates this dissonance, because on the surface level, this person doesn't look like uh, someone you should be aware of. But then there are the tactics that they use through connecting to becoming really friendly to someone, to making someone really special, feeling really special, because they are the ones who are kind of giving you the missing link, noticing what you need and becoming your special trusted adult. Then maybe something else that comes into the mind from how this gaining trust and access happened.
yeah, like what I can share here is that in Hungarian cases in camps, the groomer was the best facilitator, amazing person who had very good qualities and was respected by colleagues and parents. So it was an honor to go to that camp, and also an honor to have extra time, extra attention from this person. So all guards were a bit lower from the environment, and also from the young people, especially if they needed attention, getting attention, but not just simply from someone, but from this special person already as a rewarding effect. And in the foster home, what the director used is that he's the most powerful person here, who can solve everything, who's on your side, and can figure out how to solve any issues that you're in, or if you, I don't know, have any trouble with the police, let's talk it out, and also have very easygoing atmosphere and very friendly atmosphere compared to the other educators. So it was like, okay, here it's all cool and we are more free, and I can make things happen in a very friendly way. Quite some younger persons who met him for the first time commented on, but he's too nice. Something is off. So the ones who had more sensitivity to this, maybe they've seen some things. they said like it's not. It doesn't really fit the context. We barely know each other, and he's just too nice. So that was the first sign for them.
And also, for example, not fulfilling in that moment the role that technically the youth worker or the teacher, someone should be fulfilling. For example, the classical techniques that in our case that we knew about used, for example, is when the youngster, the girl, she was, for example, caught smoking. Like, of course, like the teenager, she wasn't allowed to smoke. And in this case, for example, and the leader, the facilitator, he kind of was like, oh, that's okay. Like, you're not supposed to, but I will not notify anyone about that. It's our secret. And then it kind of builds up on the relationship on this something, some kind of shared secret that I kind of allowed you to do something that you're not supposed to do, or to give access to some kind of space or place that is usually not accessible to your age, and so on. Some kind of specific activity, right? Something that makes you more special than the others, or have some kind of special connection.
Yeah, and one thing, like I think what you can think about throughout this whole stages we are going through is that these are not necessarily things that are bad. So if you look at any of most of these on the surface level, they look almost harmless, or some of them could be even a good thing to do. For example, paying attention to a young person is a good thing. Here, what is very, very important, that it's not paying attention to all young people, but I'm paying attention to these specifically targeted young people exclusively, and start to work towards gaining access to them in a private setting. So if I think back to the foster home I worked at, what you could hear from the director was mostly like, you can come to my office anytime. It's always open to you. So it was like branded as a very special access or support for the young person, but actually it created situations where there was more unsupervised interaction with the young person. These guys that's care. And yeah. And Patricia says like, yeah, sometimes they are strict with others and only nice to their victim. Yeah. And I think like, yeah, just
dividing the attention. Yeah.
And maybe just to add, depending on who we speak about, if you go to the human trafficking side, what you see that also they are, after a while, they are mixing in punishment and rewards. So they condition you to really just focus on them, because they are the powerful ones. And if I behave as they wish, maybe I won't be hurt, or I will get a reward. But what generally is, I think, is important here to mention, that if we talk about the case of abuse, quite often the victims face victim blaming, or the survivors face victim blaming, because very often the reaction from society and the community is like, but there was no coercion, there was no force used. You could have just walked away. And this in itself creates a lot of damage, because this manipulative process creates doubt in the survivors, like maybe I wanted part of this. And that's really, really hard to get over, because if I'm forced to do something I don't want to, at least that's clear for me that I didn't want this. But this manipulation in itself creates a lot of wounds.
And this kind of goes together with what they actually use is that fulfilling the needs of the victim, right? Because there is something lacking in that. Either youngsters, they have some kind of a need, either for this attention or emotional support, for understanding, or feeling somehow a bit somehow special or belonging, but also as it can be also just a physical need, some kind of material needs, especially when they are involved into human trafficking or something else, because then they actually might be lacking some kind of access to resources, and or like even decent food or like something like that. So also these kind of, it's both the emotional part, right, and also the material needs that can be there. So especially if you get dependent of the person for providing something that is really needed for you to be able to survive or to go to school or to not to stay on the street. It can become really difficult to understand where my needs are fulfilled and where this is like kind of a normal price to pay for that.
Yeah, and just adding to here, like what you can think of, what I heard is like it can be like good food, it can be technical gadgets like a laptop or mobile phone, but it can be also be something very important. So attention is there, and people who are like more dangerous in this sense, who are really good at connecting with others and paying attention. In the foster home I worked at, it was things like I can organize that you can visit your loved ones. So it can be very, very attentive in this sense to pay attention to what matters to the young person. So it can be used in a manipulative way. And there could be slight differences of working with young people at risk who are small. That was a good example, what just said. And it can be that I say like, okay, I don't tell you not to smoke because I know you're addicted, and it's our general way of approaching addiction on our programs, and we are working on like lowering the threshold of participation, and it can be a good quality youth work, or it can be that I'm using your addiction to gain trust and access and fulfilling your needs, and the abuser does this in a way that this actually leads to abuse. So addictive stuff like drinking alcohol together, smoking marijuana. I'm so cool. Like, yeah, you see, like I'm not that boomer as all the others. Yeah.
Watching pornography as well, for example, together, it can be a step to we will talk later about pushing the limits, the boundaries, kind of getting to some kind of sexualized content together because, well, I'm a leader and you're a youngster, of course you're watching porn, let's watch together, and this kind of things that also can be one of the
Yeah, and I think that this is also coming up in the next steps. I just want to highlight, like Joyce also shared, what traffickers look for. And I think it's very much in line with what we just said: low self-esteem, lack of adult supervision, loss in their lives, seeking a boyfriend, girlfriend, someone like affection and love, poverty, previous history of abuse, lack of friends, comes from divorce, single parent home, and foster and adoptive homes. Yeah, this list, I think it speaks to very much that there are some young people who are more vulnerable to this than others. So you can have protective factors, but let's see what else is there in our list.
Well, next definitely would be the creating the isolation, this exclusivity. We already a bit mentioned before that because we are introducing some kind of common secret, something that makes this exclusive relationship. But also in a way that the groomer starts to isolate the person. Like you shouldn't tell to those people because they won't understand you. Don't tell mom, don't tell parents because, well, they don't understand you. They will ban you to talk, like kind of constantly opposing to others and creating a kind of fence around you and your relationship. So you become more and more isolated and dependent on this particular relationship. And in the end, you kind of don't have anyone to turn to from, or you don't know how to even start to talk about it because you've been for a long time keeping this a secret.
Yeah, and regarding secrets, there's also some maybe a small tool of prevention is teaching what a good secret is. So keeping in secret a surprise party for a birthday is a good secret, and one telltale is like what happens if it it's not a secret anymore. People get to know it. What happens? Nothing bad happens. So usually these bad secrets are connected with some kind of threat. And as we discussed, and some of you already wrote in the chat, that it's gradually creating a relationship where we do things that could be seen as shameful or weird. I'm not sure if I wanted to be part of this. So actually this secrecy brings in more and more threat of shame.
Yeah.
So the more the person who is groomed and abused is in this relationship, the deeper this secrecy is, and the less likelihood of speaking up, because then there's a real cost of having to tell things that they assume will bring a lot of blame and shame, and maybe they were partially legal, but also if you think about threats, it can be that threats are also threats of losing the relationship that has been built by the groomer. In the foster home case, what was said several times by the director, that there will be consequences to me. So maybe like that was he said, like that he will go to, I don't know, jail, or people won't understand it, or there will be consequences to the foster home. Maybe people will come and close it, so you will lose your community, or it will be that you will be taken away from here, so you lose contact with your friends and siblings who live here together with you. So actually you lose contact with the people who are most important to you. So this is threaded into some kind of caring language, but it's clearly said that there's some thread. Don't tell, yeah.
Yeah, don't tell your parents or others. And also showing this is something that, well, if you are have been special to have this relationship, this is also kind of used as a manipulation role. It turns out you're not that special. It turns out you're like, well, if you're kind of telling others about it, well, you were not grown up enough, or like this kind of also using this opposition towards why the relationship was started. Oh, well, you're like the other girls. You're not as special or as interesting if you're talking about it. It's so on. So this is kind of also used as manipulation to isolate, because the person that the youngster doesn't want to lose this specialness for this reason why they were supposedly chosen.
Yeah. Thank you for the
Interesting.
comments and the contributions. Let's see
Yeah, and
what.
also it is there's Patricia is commenting that they need time to realize what it is really, even when what is happening. Yeah, and that they have consented to something that wasn't really something that they would have consented if they had time and knowledge to think about it and what it is. True.
Yeah, and there was sexuality mentioned.
Yeah.
Sexualization is also here. What's important to remember, that this is the phase, like adolescence, teenage years are the phase when in which young people are starting to explore who they want to be. So it's if you think about developmental crisis, like a question of identity or role confusion. I'm trying out different roles. I'm trying out myself in relationships. I'm trying out myself as a worker. I go and do some like summer job. So I'm trying out things for the first time, and it's really hard to tell how things should be. So it's easy to manipulate me if I'm doing something for the first time, that this is how it's done. And this is quite often used by groomers, in addition to what we've just said. And Mother, you mentioned gradually just bringing up sexual topics can be framed as this is some kind of initiation, or like brave bringing up the topic because other adults are afraid. So this can be framed, this sexualization pushing limits. Yeah, and
also as something that we just do because well adults do that, or we are like you're more grown up and like of course you can tolerate that, like kind of showing that also this is just something normal part of growing up and showing that the activities are you're supposed to perceive them as normal even though the youngster doesn't, but they don't know yet if they hadn't had the normal experience. And of course, for example, also if they have had like a kind of violent family context or they haven't seen healthy relationship models, they also don't really have a reference towards what is normal even in intimate relationships. So when they have when someone starts to touch them, to compliment them, it can feel in the beginning it can feel like just something, oh okay, that's something that supposedly we all do. And if I want to be part of this adult world, it's something that I just have to go with.
Yeah, and I think it's important to compare this with the list posted there, like what traffickers are looking for and what the young persons we mentioned need. So they need attention, connection, and care. And these stepping over boundaries quite often starts with some level of intimacy that feels good for the young person. And so, if, for example, a hug can feel good, or a personal conversation where I'm paid attention to can feel good. And all of a sudden, there's some weird joke, comment, question, or if we speak about human touch, it can start with a hug, but then what young people I talk to, they describe that after a while you feel that the hands are going a bit further, that you feel like, wow, this is weird, and as you see that this is a list, so it's a process. But at that point, you have already a lot of things that you don't want to lose, and actually you feel positive emotions towards this person. Maybe if you think about the young people we talk about here, maybe this person is perceived as the only one who gives you personal attention, and you don't want to lose that, but you're just frozen there, like, wow, what was this that I just experienced? And quite a lot of young people who experience this describe that I was frozen. I didn't know, like, what was this really happening, or I didn't know what to do, and they just put it in a box for a while.
And also sometimes it happens so slightly because it kind of attests the water, the ground. So, for example, this sliding of the hand that slides towards your back, it's like, well, it quickly comes back and you don't really understand. Was I imagining this? Was it
Yeah.
like or like there's some kind of a joke made about it that you don't really, oh, there's some kind of accident happened. So these can be, the situations can be like showing from time to time little bits, and when like the groomer sees that okay, there's no protest, they're letting me slide, these things more become longer, more intentional, or like more explicit. But sometimes it can really be disguised for a long time, like yeah, these accidents or jokes or just like funny interactions that we just do as part of our thing. And then also maybe, especially if they're the youngster, the girl or the boy is rather like 16, 17, when they really want to belong to the kind of adult world, they really don't want to seem as prude or something that someone who is not ready for sex or like any kind of this intimate touch. So they're also afraid to voice that it didn't feel comfortable because they want to be seen as adult enough already.
Yeah, and Vivi mentioned in the text chat that that type of sexualization where this, yeah.
I would just like to add something to the problem is because sometimes maybe they can feel a certain pleasure, and this is the worst part too. It's not only they feel uncomfortable, probably they liked it, but then the guilt feeling because they don't understand what's happening will let them even be part of this secrecy, and this is the worst part. And it takes a lot of time to realize that this was an abuse. So this is very important to mention, I think, too.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
Patricia. I'm in touch with some survivors who have very hard time. I'm speaking about years to get over the like first part of this kind of confusion that uh, like did I enjoy it? A part of it? Did I really want it? And I think it's very hard time of recovery and healing to come into terms with this story of them. And I think that what could be what we could look for. And thank you very much. This is very important things that you're mentioning. And also, Vivi mentioned that what you could look for is when someone wants to be part of stories of young people learning about relationships and sexuality in a gossiping type of way. So it's not sexual education that's happening, but I'm just entering their life as a voyeur, and there's no clear purpose. So what is happening and why is this happening? And is it coming from the young person? So they want to share and then just listening, or I'm asking for detail. So it's like it's a kind of voyeur thing, which is very different than sexual education. And I think what distinctive factor could be that is this happening as an open process of a learning program for everyone, or do we do this secretly? And does the adult initiate? So, and then you can add. I just want to mention that these accidental touches might seem weird, but as professionals, we should really take care that we make an effort not to do that. And what I've heard I heard reports from young people could be that there's a zipper and the adult pulls down the zipper, but ends with a bit touching the groin of the young person. So it was just, I was just pulling down the zipper, or handing over a small plate of sweets, but placing it on the groin, on the lap of the young. So it's like pretending to do something, but there's some accidental touches paving the way. And at the further end of this can be concrete initiatives of watching pornographic content together, talking about concrete pornographic or sexual topics. So this is gradually happening. Yeah, and this ambiguity is there, what you mentioned, Patricia.
And this is what makes it difficult, actually, because you think you are imagining this, that this by mistake happened, and bit by bit, then you see yourself inside this as if you're consenting on it.
Yeah, and definitely what you bring to mind is it makes harder to ask for help, because the first question that comes from outsiders, if someone reports, usually what I've seen, people report it easier at the first stages because it's weird. Like, did this happen? Have you seen it? But later, if people are in this grooming process, it's way harder to start to speak up. But if you speak at the first stages, people respond like, come on, you were just imagining it, or it's hard to prove. So you're on your own, actually.
This is something that we are also saying to the either like professionals or the youngsters when we talk about that it is not about specific things that has happened even, but the gut feeling. If you feel that this feels weird or kind of strange, trust that feeling. Because we have these subtle things that we can't really yet say that, yep, this is a specific sign or things have happened. But we do notice these little things earlier on, and it's fine to follow this gut feeling in these moments, because to see, okay, what is happening there? Do I feel comfortable? Because it also might be that there's someone who just doesn't have the same understanding of boundaries, or like some kind of even like in intercultural context, we have different understanding of body space and everything else. But still, if the gut feeling tells you that there's something not really good, we act on it. We always do. We try to figure out what is happening. Okay, I think let's jump for the last in a way step, because right, of course, well, it can happen. For example, the grooming part, it can happen and lead to just one episode, for example, of exploitation or some kind of abuse. But it can be also the aim to keep that for years, for example. And then, yes, of course, you have to have also this kind of a maintenance of control, because you have to keep the kid or the youngster in your hands in a way. And then, of course, it comes in the manipulations again and again. And there's guilt, there's threatening, both regards, for example, that you will either lose this relationship or something else that you're gaining from it. But also, just for example, if the person has gained access to your images with you sexually explicit ways, they can use those. And sometimes there's the difference, for example, in this case regarding the gender. More often for the boys, they are asking to either pay money or do some kind of other things. And for girls, they're asking to create more content and more videos or photos to be used somewhere else. So they kind of are later on using different techniques, what they can use against the youngster. It can be both ways, but it's just there tend to be a bit gender techniques towards what is used against one or the other person.
Yeah, and just adding to this, you see that like at this stage, this is not a harmonious relationship at all from the outside. It can be very intense emotions, but no, like you don't have any information. So this manipulation and threat can be very severe. So there's already quite a lot of walls around the young person, and it can be that threatening, for example, in a foster care situation, that I will kick you out from here, or you won't have access to drugs, or I will report you to police. So these threats can increase. And if you think about human trafficking, it can be physical violence too, entering. But there should be also these rewards that we mentioned. And I think like both as survivors or bystanders, what Patricia you mentioned, I would just like to underline that listening, and we will get to that, but listening to each other and listening to ourselves and connecting to that, and having the courage to phrase like something is off here and let's start to talk about it is a key part of the solution, because of the manipulativeness of the whole thing that we described.
Yeah. And what is interesting also, sometimes in these cases, like the grooming can result even in like long-term relationships. Like, for example, we know that there are cases, for example, when a student is technically groomed by a professor or like teacher or someone like in a older than themselves. Yes, it kind of results maybe in a long-term relationships afterwards. Maybe they even, I don't know, get married and technically are seemingly happy couple. But this is something that kind of normalizes this as well, because, well, once in a while, there's just something that ended up in a happy way. But normally, this is not the case, and it shouldn't be the case, and we shouldn't romanticize these things. But at least in Latvia and in our culture, we still kind of say, oh, but those are artists, or those professors, or those are students. They like their professors, or they like their charismatic persons, and it's kind of fine. That's part of this creative life. And this is something that it's important to talk about. It is not part of the normal growing up. Yes, if they are grown up later on and they still find each other attractive, that's a different story. But it's not normal when there's like 16, 17 years old youngster going together with 20 years older teacher, for example. And that is just something that I really wanted to mention as well, because we still do tend to romanticize these kind of things. And also the popular culture allows us to see these kind of gestures and the relationship still is sometimes romantic, passionate, and so on. But yeah, just maybe to quickly also stress, because we really talked about these three things already, but this is part of it. This is really the gradualness of it, right? And this is something that kind of really allows us to not notice it and not really understand what is happening. Where it sometimes changes in the online environment. So the online grooming, that is a separate thing. This can happen way faster from what we know and see, because especially if the abusers are targeting younger kids, they can get to sexual explicit videos or photos in like few days or maybe even in one day, because there are these kind of intense communication and no control of other people can lead to these things. But in person, usually it takes longer. So, and hopefully we have more spaces where to notice this as well. And yes, and then sometimes it can be mixed match also, because there's in person, maybe there's nothing technically happening, but the same person is targeting the youngster in an online environment. So we won't see anything really unusual in their interaction on the activities where we see them in person, but at the same time they are chatting, they are writing messages, they are having some kind of other interaction.
Yeah, and let's see what are the red flags if you think about it, because it can be that this was the process of what you see from an adult, but there's also the other side of the whole process, what you see, what you experience from the young person that maybe you could pick up. And I just want to highlight that there could be all kinds of language used by communities and societies that depict the whole thing as more neutral or not so harmful. If you think about, oh, that's how men are, that's how artists are, or this is, I heard from this director who was very religious that this is love. So I'm just expressing love. And maybe, I don't know what they believe, but maybe they believe this or not, but they say this for sure. And what I want to bring our attention to, that it's better not to focus on the narrative, but focus on the young person and what are the effects. And if you look at how people are after this process, they are not well. So it's clearly not what it is described to be. So let's have a look at there.
Especially also, as you mentioned, for example, even in those cases when the grooming results in like a long-term relationship, people coming out after that in like 10 or 15 years sometimes recognize, oh, that's what happened to me when I was 14, and that's how I got involved with my sports coach, and that's how we like maybe even resulted in I don't know, in marriage or long-term relationship. And then I realized like, no, it wasn't normal, but it can take me 15, 20 years to even discover, especially if we are thinking about nowadays when we are finally starting to talk about things. But there's a lot of the things were not discussed 10 years ago, even 5 years ago. So it's also, when you're coming out of it, you sometimes just realize what happened to you. But yeah, for the red flags, I think definitely something that comes into the mind, of course, is changes in behavior in all kinds of ways, of course. It can be change in behavior with persons, but also here we want to stress the change in behavior with devices. Because if something is happening there through online environment, and there might be more increased time on phone or social media. But also the patterns might become different, because they are, when, for example, you are entering the room, they're quickly shutting down the computer or switching the tabs or or I don't know, hiding the phone when you come closer to them. It might just mean that they, I don't know, maybe have a young new relationship and they're really in love with someone and chatting constantly. That doesn't mean that exclusively that this is a bad thing, but sudden changes with devices can be something. And when they're like they're becoming more secretive about what they do, or really anxious about not losing the phone, or that they haven't answered for a while, and they feel that the pressure is that they don't have the chance to open the, I don't know, Facebook. No, okay, youngsters are not opening Facebook and Snapchat, like so. In that kind of sense, so there can be different feelings, but they might feel the pressure that yes, the person is waiting for my answer, and I have to answer to them, and so on.
Yeah, and like let's see what else is there. And also, Joyce, thank you for the red flags. If you think about human trafficking,
Wonderful.
you see like there's a extensive list. And I think what we need to bear in mind that you can pick up these signs early. And if you're not talking about human trafficking per se, you're just running a camp, a youth exchange. You're part of a religious organization or an art organization. Uh, you can also pick up these signs. So what else is there, Madara? Like, yeah,
Let's see.
behavior change.
Yes, definitely. There's we can sometimes see that the person is starting to refer to someone as a special, or who's the only one who understands me. Like there's some kind of a strong presence of someone in the youngster's life. It can be great. They have a great leader, supported adult, and so on. But at the same time, this is the moment where we get attentive and see, okay, what is the relationship there? How much influence do they have? Because it's fine, and youngsters are really, really easily to get attached. The new best friend is the only friend they've ever had. This one mentor that is finally paying attention, well, that's the person. Like that's the only person I talk about, and that can be also normal for a while. But it is something to pay attention to, be like really check in what's the right relationship there. And yes, as also I see in the chat what was mentioned, especially for the human trafficking or involvement in some kind of other exploitation. If there's something explained, the access to resources shows up, well, they are getting it somehow, and this is really a red flag because well, you don't get things for free, like never ever. And then youngsters don't sometimes really yet understand that as well. That okay, now maybe I'm getting access to this or that thing, but it might be that I will have to pay for it through some kind of services later on. And this is something that it doesn't matter either the youngster has already a lot of things in their home and they are well off, or if they are with low resources, they still can't. Sometimes don't really follow the link that the adult who's giving them something might be interested in return, having something in return later on.
Yeah, and one thing like we will talk a bit about safeguarding. So one thing like as you see like these things so far could mean all kinds of things. So not necessarily grooming, but if you see this pattern, you might start to worry, and especially if in combination the special person shows stages of grooming, then it's very worrying. And one example I want to add here that it's a huge difference if kids get something for free in a camp and all the kids get the thing, or no, it's just that young person. Because yeah, and there was something mentioned about boundaries. I'm not sure if I understand it in like it's mentioned in the chat. We need to speak about boundaries. Do you mean it's a prevention?
Yes, it's Moira again. I wrote that down because when we ask about certain things and when we see certain things happening, and we adults, when we're in our groups, different places, and there are kids or teenagers that are, well, in our trust, in our care, we need to also encourage them to always hold a professional kind of relationship where boundaries are very much important, where, listen, this is my body and I am in control of my body and this is my space and please don't come too close, and loads of those things where boundaries are important. I'm not saying that we try to make ice figures out of the children, out of teenagers, but we need to understand where friendships go and how they are kept. Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you. And I just want to highlight, Mother, if you're okay with that, like in
Yeah.
the chat, it was also mentioned, and also feeling special. We wrote like father instead of father, but not for all children. I just want to mention that like the director used to speak about the children in the foster home, that they are my sons, they are my uh, daughters, I'm father, kind of. So he was posturing like this, and that's not clear boundaries at all. Like, yeah, I'm not the father, I'm the director here. I can be a very nice person, but I'm not the father. And what I want to add here is that some young people on the list before just mentioned have a strong need for connection and touch. So it would be, I think it's an important issue to mention that if we don't connect and sometimes don't have physical connection, it can be also neglecting them, their needs. So that's why it's crucial to have professionalism and professional touch. So if you think about running a camp, for sure, some youngsters playing all kinds of games will get hurt. They fall, they hurt their knees, and then you end up having a situation where you need to provide first aid, and it involves touch. So training your people, what it means, what's a proper contact, and also who is present and how you do it is it's a crucial piece of this. So I'm really happy that you mentioned all these.
Yeah, thank you. And also, yeah, there can be emergency situations, for example, where you, yeah, when you have, I don't know, have to take the youngster's pants off to get to touch to take care of the bruise, for example, right? Then there's the question: who do you invite? Where's the other person there? Did you explain what you will exactly be doing? Because it's the vocalizing.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we have to take off your pants just because we have to clean this bruise, and I will touch only here. So I'm letting you know specifically, right? And this is something that is usually lacking when we are crossing the boundary. We don't say what will happen. We don't explain. We don't voice it. And this is where the boundaries are crossed, and when we have the gray zones. And
Yeah.
also, like, if you want to move to the this also kind of connects together. For example, also where the sexualized behaviors or language come into, because the kids do, unfortunately, the younger ages as well, watch sexualized content, especially youngsters do. They explore themselves, they explore their sexuality, they try out all kinds of acting out on themselves, and that's fine. But if it comes out of context, if it comes suddenly, if it feels that it's too early for their age, especially, this is something to be worried about.
Yeah, and just one thing to add here, like still, this can be just one sign, and it can be that it's not sign of grooming. It can be that unfortunately young people have access to pornography in a very early age. So if you see this, it can be a cause for you to worry about the young person. And anyway, you should maybe do something about it, not only you as an individual, but as a team of professionals to address the thing. And it's not an easy subject, but it's already a sign that you should maybe explore what you can do about it.
One more thing that came into my mind, in any case of when the youngster might have experienced sexual abuse, is also the change in the way they dress or how they physically act out. For example, if they are, sometimes they might feel the need to cover themselves more than usually.
Yeah.
For example, baggy clothes, not showing maybe if there's some kind of bruise as well, or something like that. So either you're kind of a need to retract to hide yourself, or sometimes it can happen the opposite, because as I've been sexualized, I'm suddenly showing way more of my skin, dressing regularly, like in short skirts, showing off a lot, because I don't feel the boundaries anymore, what is appropriate. So these two options is, if it's something that is out of the character, it's not because one or the other would be bad as such, but if it comes out of the character, this is the moment where to pay attention to.
Yeah. Some survivors describe feeling dirty and having the need of cleaning themselves very thoroughly. So you can see, like, maybe they don't want to show themselves that much. They just take long showers after meeting this person. So like anything out of character could start some kind of exploring what's there.
So and any kind of like sudden changes in behavior, anyway, for us as specialists working with youth, is something that to notice. But definitely also there can be withdrawal or anxiety. There can also be like, it depends. The person can become more depressed, become more like inwards, and also can become like not typically hyperactive, for example, kind of a push, becoming anxious and already like really talkative and trying to hide the situation. So there could also be like both ways. It doesn't mean that the person will definitely become really visibly sad or depressed. It might be completely the opposite, but it's still, if it's sudden change in behavior, it means there's some kind of something has happened in their lives. It doesn't, maybe it's something else in interpersonal relationships with peers or at home, but something's bugging them. And yes, and also this fear or discomfort around a particular person or place. This is something that also shows up. The person, if the youngster is kind of trying to avoid particular situations, or maybe suddenly becomes afraid from I don't know, loud noises or some kind of activities, something that is kind of not typical for them as well. Reaction towards persons, places, sounds, smells. Also, well, there might be some kind of trigger, and this common combination with the other red flags. One of these things probably won't be something that is directly indicating about the grooming, but it definitely is something that it asks us to pay attention. What is happening there, youngster?
Yeah, and then just adding to this, you can, if you recall these stages of grooming, at a later stage when it's more manipulative and coercive and threatening, these young people can feel very much discomfort, at least around this person. So it's not a good thing to do, to be with them. Quite often, like, there could be anger, sadness, everything, all mixture of emotions. And at the same time, it's a very isolated place to be, because with this secret, with this shame, it's so hard to connect with others, to engage in everyday other type of activities. So it's a very lonely place to be, and having this anxiety or depression or what they live through. Quite often, it's combined with some kind of self-medication or attempts to lessen the anxiety or the negative emotions they are going through. So they are not so present in that sense too.
Yeah, that's true. Thanks. Yeah, any kind of substance abuse as well. Yeah, all kinds of things, or like maybe like obsession with some kind of activity as well. That is something that can show up as some kind of a coping technique that can be fine for a while, but if it's like obsessive, that shows that the youngster is trying to cope with something that is happening in their lives.
Yeah,
But I think we have to run to the next thing now.
yeah, yeah. Just to mention, like these lists are not concise lists. Like this is not the like, comprehensive list of this should be there. We try to share here more an approach and understanding of what you might be looking for, and it's obvious that you know quite a lot that's visible in the chat. So let's see some factors here.
If we're talking also about the grooming, like the grooming itself in generally is not yet officially qualified, usually classified usually as violence, right? But it's the tactic to get to the abuse, to the it's like it's the manipulation. But sorry, just jumping. You know, as when you're leading a webinar from your office, you have always someone running in, just in case.
Yeah.
I'm just letting you know. But yeah, as we mentioned, that there's like no, I lost the focus. Sorry.
Yeah,
Let's
like
move to
maybe I want to add here something. I think it's very important that now we are learning about this. So if you look at the reality in Hungary, most likely child rights organization and people involved in human rights, they know more. They use this language, and now it's shared with other professionals working with young people. For example, youth work. And it can be that you need to understand this phenomenon, find a way to talk about it, find a way to express yourself. So, for example, language, and also start to educate your organization and also other professionals. For example, if you want to report such things, maybe the police is not really ready to listen to you because they would say the list that we just provided. And if it's an earlier stage, they say, what's wrong with this? Or even an employer would say like, wow, this person that you're just describing as groomer is a very good employee. He's giving so much extra attention to this young person who needs extra attention. So this kind of education and also what we're doing right now, this conversation around it helps also to prevent and also helps society to move away from victim blaming and this kind of romanticized language about such abuse.
Yeah, thank you for that. But I will quickly then jump into maybe because
Yeah.
we've touched a lot about the factors already because it naturally comes into but what is something still worth to mention I think is about what might lead to grooming, what kind of makes you more vulnerable towards it. Especially if you're thinking about youth, for example, in different kind of age groups, it might be something different. But as it was mentioned in some moments, it is a gender thing, definitely. It might, the youngsters from different genders might experience it differently and might be targeted differently. And also the consequences for them might be different. For example, typically we know more about young women being groomed or girls being groomed. But at the same time, we know that the young men are probably not even disclosing this as well because there is the taboo around it. There is uh, the fear of being labeled as homosexual or like not really be allowing themselves to even say and recognize that this is something against their will because we have this myth of boys always wanting sex, and so how is it that you didn't want it? Like this is also something that is a gendered thing, and we can't really look at it differently. We have to keep in mind that there are things that are targeting and how the reaction is also like might be different for different kind of genders, and also like we have almost no knowledge about how the LGBT youth is experiencing this because there is like no data about that.
Yeah. And what else is there?
Properly because I just my headphones were doing some random thing. You hear me now properly?
Yes, yes.
Wonderful. So let's jump into the age as well. There are things that are different and can be differently used for different ages of kids, because we see that now online grooming, for example, is happening with the younger and younger ages of kids. Sometimes it's girls that are 8 years old already used for online grooming and sexualized content creation. Then the teenagers can be subjected to other techniques, and the near adults or already the 18 plus but still really vulnerable are also in a different kind of experience. They are also vulnerable in different kind of aspects, because technically they are adults in that moment, but they don't yet have the knowledge and the skills and the ability to actually critically evaluate the situation. So they are not legally protected anymore, but at the same time they are vulnerable to all kinds of issues. And of course, there are all kinds of interpersonal features. It's both also the personality, the social context where they are, and everything else that creates the ethnicity, like either it's the ethnic background in the specific state and culture, or it's like if they're migrants or refugees, of course, that also creates extra vulnerabilities. I know that the Armenia Academia is talking a lot about highly vulnerable youngsters. Maybe you want to, like, in 2 sentences, expand on that.
Maybe it's a good point to mention that the project we are running, that we mentioned, would like to address this issue that if you work with young people, sometimes you talk about young people as disadvantaged or vulnerable. But what we've seen that some young people who have more factors, they have more factors in their lives that make them more vulnerable, are especially sensitive to such topics, and especially if these factors are systemic. So it's one thing to live on the countryside in rural areas, but it's another thing to be a Roma person living in a society as a member of an ethnic minority and being a girl. That creates in itself higher vulnerability for grooming also, or all the list that has been just shared here. I think they these young people are young people who we should pay special attention to. And one thing I want to highlight that youth work is very innovative, very free. And camps are also a bit outside of the normal everyday life. So, and where you create your own rules and norms, which is a great opportunity to learn and grow and try out new things. And at the same time, can provide a pretext or a disguise for creating a grooming environment. And especially over 18, people dismiss the fact that these could be young people who are more vulnerable, and maybe they don't know what they give their consent to. And these factors that we described, and also these safeguarding steps that some of them were mentioned, are very, very important with people over 18. Because if you look at how these people are doing after such experiences, they are not well. So we really recommend to do safeguarding and take care for people over 18 as well, even though those cases might not have been legally crimes. They do harm, and we would like to avoid them.
Thank you. And yeah, just for the last ones as well, of course, you mentioned already before that, the family context. It doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that if I have one parent family that it will be necessarily a bad thing. It's like wonderful families are made by one parent, but at the same time we have to acknowledge that sometimes then there will be less time and resources that the parent can devote to the kid, and there might be some vulnerabilities into that. Or if the parents are really involved in the work or some other issues, of course the families who are violent themselves, having domestic violence or abuse, drug issues, and so on. But also the relationships themselves. What are the relationships with the friends? Do they have intimate partners with the youngsters already? What's the common culture in the youth? In that youth environment in the community, do they have these kind of healthy or unhealthy relationships as a matter of fact? Because some communities kind of really can serve as a protective factor if they're showing overall like healthy relationship patterns, and they are quickly to model and show and also get engaged when there's something wrong happening. And some are really secretive or not involved or like really controlling, and can be a space where these kind of grooming relationships can grow out of. And as you mentioned, the culture in GEOs, the international youth work or just the local youth work itself, it is something that is really really a good breeding ground, both for good and the bad practices, because it depends from the country, but in many countries it's still rather unregulated, or they're just starting to regulate and have to set the professional standards and so on. And often these are these mixed age groups. They are in more non-formal settings, having camps or some kind of seminars, stayovers at night. Often mixed groups with different with language barriers sometimes, and from different cultures coming together. So there's way more space for these kind of a gray zones if we don't define them in before that.
Yes, let's move on, and maybe before we jump into prevention, also I would like to just stop for a while and see if there's any questions, comments, because we've been speaking a lot. And bear in mind, like we have 15 minutes, 14, so we will close the webinar. Before we get there, I just want to check in. Maybe you already start to write questions or open the mic. And we would like to close with some directions to prevent. There's something mentioned about organized crime. And
youth organizations. And well, we need to push forward certain issues and to make people aware of certain things, even through maybe collaboration for changing of laws and regulations where there's a lax because each country has its own rules and regulation, fine, but there are also laws regarding children, teenagers, minors. Hence, we need to abide and how do I say it? Make aware, educate as much as we can.
yeah,
Thank you. Yes.
thank you. And just want to comment, like there was something mentioned by Özlem about strict laws and having prison sentences of gang members. I want to highlight the importance of, we are not talking about violent crime necessarily here, not at all. In my experience, these people who are manipulatively grooming others, they are they seemingly are very nice people who manipulate everyone. And sometimes they are church-going people, seen as the best person in their community, and still abusing boundaries in a way that hurt people, even to the extent when the young people commit suicide or die. Sorry, like die by suicide, not commit. Wrong word. So when you're so desperate that you think about ending your life because it's so torturing to experience emotionally what you're going through. So I want to highlight that this, what we talk about, is not a physical force where these gangs and brutal people force young people to do something they don't want. This starts, even in the human trafficking examples that were given, as a manipulative process that is disguised as care and attention. And maybe let's jump into the prevention part briefly.
Yeah.
We have roughly 10 minutes.
And this is something that you really all already touched upon and covered, because there's no one right answer or one particular thing to do. It's all about creating this culture in the organization or in the specialist work where we follow and enforce the safeguarding practices. And the safeguarding practices are such as like several things coming together. We do talk about unclear boundaries, as you mentioned already before that. It's both things that we have to talk about boundaries, sensitivize youngsters, and also the specialists themselves about the boundaries. How do I know when my boundaries are stepped over? What is appropriate in which role? And also, yeah, knowing what exactly is my role, especially in this youth work field where sometimes there is a group leader, there's someone who facilitates things, there's someone who just participates. One day, like 2 days ago, I was participant. Now I'm a group leader. How does that differ? Like, what are my roles now? I've been myself a part of the youngster youth camps when I was like a teenager, and gradually I kind of graduated from the participant towards already the what's the name for that? Yeah, the leader. And it was really confusing for me at that moment, because suddenly half of my friends were still participants and I was the leader and supposedly had to enforce some kind of different kind of activities. But to be honest, some like a year ago, I was still kissing with some of the boys and who are now participants. So it is really confusing. Also, even if you don't want to do anything mean or anything manipulative, so there's the gray zones kind of are created where groomers can use them intentionally. Then. This is something then where we have to work on group norms and understanding consent, because also if we know that technically we know these words, respectful communication, asking for consent, boundaries, and so on, but we sometimes know them just as words. We don't really know in practice how does it look like. And this is something that is important to talk together with the teams, with the youngsters themselves, co-create these group norms, because then we know that we actually understand what it is what we are talking about, and we know when it's stepped over. Because otherwise, there's no way that, like, I know that, like, what it actually means, especially with this such a complex word of consent, that is also asking consent about touching, about understanding how we interact with this, so on. Yeah, I don't know. And also maybe I think in 3 words can talk about the risk management
Yeah,
and
I just want.
safeguarding.
Yeah, I just want to highlight, like, if we don't go into detail, but actually you're managing risk coming from people, and risk management and safeguarding are related topics. So one can be part of the other depending on the organization. But I want to highlight that these are systemic things. So it's good to think about prevention and also think about questions that are ethical questions. So the ethical dimensions of youth work are currently being explored or worked on. So if you don't have a code of ethics, don't be surprised. Like some countries have it, some not. But these are aiming, all these three things aim to have safer learning programs for young people. Just wanted to highlight that this is part of a bigger puzzle. And maybe just going through the last piece here. Let's see the last slide, because I think this might be some reference to safeguarding. Like, well, wait. You're
I'm
fast.
I'm trying to understand where we are.
Yeah. We're good here. So could you press? Now you're doing the presentation. So it's like one thing I want to highlight is to like reporting and safeguarding is super important. And what we mentioned is like you should really listen and believe the young person, because they might describe something that they don't have words for. Like, especially if you consider these stages, it's so hard to verbalize, especially if I have this weird feeling, there was this strange touch. And don't jump to conclusions, just listen. And then it's also very, very important to avoid victim blaming, and also be clear with the language. Sometimes the young people come with a question like, maybe I did something wrong. I gave a wrong sign or signal differently, or I was too close. So it's like, I think it's very important to signal that that you are their ally. So you're with them, and this shouldn't happen. So it's not normal. And listen without judgment, and support and encourage them to talk. Let's talk together, so they can try to find ways to express themselves, and also linking them to other support. But it's very, very important to explore what kind of support they can rely on, because it might be the reality that quite some people around them don't believe them. And looking for other allies or team members for you is an important piece of providing support. Yeah, and you can also offer them your help in connecting and being with them and meeting up. So it's not just not a one-off, but the follow-up is a big question here, depending on the context we're talking about. Yeah, and keeping in touch with them. So we have discussed all different scenarios of grooming, but I wanna highlight what I heard from professionals. Unfortunately, quite often, that we cannot prove this. They just want attention. They are lying, and especially if you're talking about someone experiencing any sad story of grooming, who use substances to manage their emotions. Victim blaming has this also on the list. So they are telling this because they are just addicts, and they are angry about this wonderful person who has done so many good things for the community. Yes, and I see, Uslam, your take on the violence and gangs. Yeah, that's a very, very important topic. I'm not diminishing the importance of it. I just want to highlight that what we are talking about here is grooming in the context of youth work. And if you look at the cases and scandals in churches, camps, art scene, and other organizations, this is the picture that we talk about. We wanted to highlight this manipulative, psychological, and progressive, like gradually built up process, which is very different than physical force and violence. So we wanted to highlight like this gray zone. Yeah, and let's go
maybe
yeah.
As we don't have that much of, unfortunately, we like to talk. We would be able to talk more and more, but just also to notify that to paying attention to this is in some cases, yes, this waits. This will be there will be the need to report to services, to either police or social services or whatever is in your context, the relevant professionals. But what we are trying to also really pay attention to is that sometimes and quite often we might be able to catch something before something really bad happens, but notice that there is some kind of pattern, some kind of attitude, something that is creating something shady. And here the internal reporting practices are really important. If I notice that in my events, in my camps or in my seminars, in my youth exchanges, one particular leader is doing something a bit too close to something, I feel the gut feeling, right? This is the moment that we are not letting it slide, that we as a professionals, as organizations are checking either with the other specialists in my organization. We are having some space and procedure where we do discuss these things and decide, okay, do we intervene? Do we have a conversation with this leader? How do we follow up? And this is something that we might be able then to, this is one part of the prevention where we intervene really before something can happen.
Yeah, and also clarity about how reporting goes, who decides on how to proceed, what kind of follow-up is needed. So yeah, this is more of safeguarding. And as a closing, I would just say like now our time is getting to an end, unfortunately. I hope this was useful for you in some way or another. We would like to share the presentation also, and as we mentioned, we have this project called Ladder to Inclusion, which has the name because we see that quite some young people have very high thresholds and they cannot enter safe learning programs. So we would like to have more steps of the ladder, and they can take part in safe mobilities, and part of this is also working on organizational safeguarding. So you can, if you follow us, you can read about that, and we will share some resources here. One is coming from our partner, a report about grooming from Baltic states, and some leather materials on safeguarding, and also in the European Solidarity Corps, they are also working on safeguarding guidelines. And we just list here two movies that might help you understand how it is from the inside, from a survivor's perspective or people around. These are documentaries that we recommend because they are very close to reality. And thank you very much for your attention. Now our time is up. We might stay just a few minutes. If you have any questions regarding practicalities or anything, I don't know, Madara, if you can stay a few minutes more.
Yes, yes, of course.
And yeah, I would like to say thank you very much for your questions, contributions. It was very meaningful and useful. We spoke a lot, so we just now stay silent. And
Sofiana, you wrote that you would like to say something. Just switch on your mic and tell us if it's still there.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for being here. If there's no need to say anything, we really appreciate that you were here, and we will post the recording. We edit a bit beginning and the end online. So
and Sofiana, how can we help you to talk? Can you switch on your microphone or unmute it, and then we can hear you? We are here and you can talk.
Yeah, we cannot do it. You can write in chat or unmute your mic.
All right, but meanwhile you can figure it out. That I can tell you that.
I want to talk about this. I don't understand because I speak Arabic very much and small English. Can you help me of that?
Yeah, Patricia, you wanted to say something? Yeah.
I speak Arabic, so if there's something I need to translate, I can probably help سفيان. أنا بقدر ساعدك إذا بحاجة أي
because I'm from Algeria, I speak my language is Arabic. I study English in my school, and ما مهم help me please in my life. Help me. Thank you, and thank you very much of the science. All the watching. Thank you. And sorry about the time.
عندك حاجة معينة؟ عندك شيء معين بدك احكيه وترجم
Yeah,
من
yes, I have. كيف تأثر الفيولنس على الحياة الاجتماعية تاع الناس.
Okay. So Sofyan is asking how violence influence the social behavior on people socially.
Well, it's a huge question. I mean, like, I'm not sure if we have time to uh, explore it, and also, like, depending on what we talk about, I think we lack the expertise to really say anything about it if it's a social phenomenon. But what comes to mind is what we mentioned regarding this topic. That there's all kinds of language that diminish the violence of grooming, and they depict it as something less harmful because it's not a physical violence that you see on the surface. It's you see just the harm after a while. I don't know if this makes sense. I don't know. Yeah, if you could help with translating.
واضح سفيان ولا بحاجة لترجمة؟
I don't want tradition because I understand now. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
And yeah, thank you for being
The
here. Thank you
recording
for the
has
translation.
stopped.
Patricia,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. I want you visit my country, Algeria.
Yeah, would be lovely. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Inshallah, inshallah, inshallah.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank
Okay,
you.
I think with this wonderful invitation, I think we will also close the webinar. And if
Yeah.
some kind of comments or questions are specific about the topic that we discovered, discovered but covered, I believe you also can contact one or the other organization of ours and see, like, we can see if there's something that we can expand on or like share materials.
Yes.
But there is this project of Project Ladder where we are really working for several years to kind of provide more public materials on these kind of topics in youth work, specifically how to work with the highly vulnerable youngsters, how to create safeguarding policies and practices in youth work. So yes, definitely follow this, and we will have some more usable things that you can use in your work.
Yeah. So you see, most likely, I think, like in a few days or weeks, some feedback. If you provide us feedback, it's really appreciated. And some of you asked for a certificate. Our colleagues can respond to that. I'm not sure, Moni, who will respond. Can you help with that?
We will send the presentation and the feedback form, and on the feedback form you can ask for the certificate of attendance. So you will have it in a few days.
Thank you very much, and see you next time. And keep up the work you're doing. Have a good continuation. Bye.
هذه حل الكاميرا شوف هذه حل الكاميرا.
Hi.
Good to see you.
I study in university. Can I show? Can I show you?
Yeah,
This is.
please,
This is my university.
please.
Wow.
Wow. Wow,
Yeah,
amazing. Thank you.
informatical.
Yes, and thank you for showing us some sun. For example, in Hungary, it's not so sunny. So
Welcome, my brothers. You are my brothers.
thank you. And thank you, everyone. We are now closing the Zoom because the webinar is over, and we really appreciate that you came.